Welcome to the Middle East. The Europeans called it the Middle East because it wasn't the Far East, yet it wasn't the very close East, which is Eastern Europe, so they call it the Middle East. The Middle East is a special region of historical importance. It's a dry land. The challenge of dry land agriculture is always there because the entire region that you see behind me is less than 10 inches of rain per year. The population tends to scatter in the well-watered zones like along the Mediterranean coast west of the Atlas Mountains, Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. The Atlas Mountains form a rain shadow, so everything downwind from it, which would be going east, is the Sahara Desert, the largest desert in the world. Other people have settled along the Nile Valley because Egypt is a gift of the Nile, according to the early historians, because it was only there that they could make agriculture work, that they could have drinking water for sanitation and for personal consumption. Everything else was too dry except for a little bit of oasis life. And then there was the land between the two rivers, the Mesopotamian Valley, as it's called. And so that was another area of moderately high population density in agriculture. This is the area of the world that was the first area to domesticate plants and animals. The thinking is it's around 10,000 BC. You take a seed, you put it in the ground, and you water it, and out sprouts a bush. You take a tuber, which is a stalk, chop it up, put it in the ground, and out comes more vegetation. The same way with animals for grazing purposes. The animals follow the transhumance approach. They go to the highland for a forage in the winter, in the summertime. They come down to the lower land for the forage in the wintertime. Up in the summer, down in the winter, to stay cool and find the green pastures. And then if you're a grazer with camels, sheep, and goats, you're looking to go to the places according to the seasonal change where there would be moisture, to the oases. These are nomadic herders, sometimes called Bedouins. They're not aimlessly driving their camels about. Now they sometimes have cell phones, even though they still live in tents. And we visit them in the tents on several occasions. But they're following the seasons to find the wet season where their animals can exist and prosper. And you have the coast of Turkey, which is a milder climate that supports a heavier population. So this is the Middle East. This is Mesopotamia. This is the Nile Valley, where the early hearth, H-A-R-T-H, the early sites of civilization were developed, not only for plant and animal domestication, but for geometry, arithmetic, for the great languages of the world, and also the great religions of the world. Judaism, for example, was formed here in Ur of the Chaldees, is where Abraham was born, and he moved from there. And finally, the Christians that split off from him and the Jews approximately 30 to 60 AD, of course, in the area of Israel and spread throughout. And then finally, Muhammad, who received his vision, they say, in Mecca and Medina in Saudi Arabia. So these three religions colliding now have formed a cultural collision that is creating the tremendous difficulty, the geopolitical strife, the cultural collision that we're seeing in the Middle East today. And most of it is not so much religion versus religion, but it is also the modernization of the West and the modernity, the traditionalism of the East, and the two colliding in geopolitics and globalization in the forms of music, in the forms of food, in the forms of clothing, in the forms of representation of democracy, for example, versus kingdoms. And this seems to be coming to a boiling point now with the new Arab Spring, which has created democratic movements in the countries that have toppled the governments and toppled the military, but has left a vacuum of factions, mainly Sunni, Shia, Druze, and Kurds, and even Orthodox Coptics, fighting for control of the various governments.